Why should I waste my life on you and those useless kids, when I can have the woman I truly love? Those were the venomous words my husband spat at me the day he dragged his ex out of the water, and left me and our children behind. In that single moment, he didn't just abandon us, he mocked us, crushed us, and showed the world exactly how little we meant to him. I held my children close, broken but determined, as the man I once called my husband chose his past over the family he built. We were left to suffer, to struggle, to bleed in silence. But life has a way of turning shame into glory. And just when I thought our story had ended in pain, a billionaire walked in, and what followed no one could have imagined. Sometimes the ones who break you become the reason you rise. This is my story, and today it is being retold by me. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please, subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. Clara Bennett woke before the alarm. The house was quiet except for the rhythm of the ocean. Beyond the rented beach cottage, a thin line of light cut across the curtains. She lay still for a moment, listening. Lily's soft snore from the next room. Ethan's stuffed dinosaur squeaking each time he rolled over. The small sounds made her chest warm. This was the kind of morning she used to dream about, simple, safe, the four of them together. She slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen. Coffee, toast, fruit, fast and easy. She set out. Sunscreen, towels, and the bright red pail Lily insisted on bringing, even though she was 9 and too old for a baby bucket. Today was a family day. Sand castles, seashells, maybe 1 hour, where Daniel would put away his phone and be theirs. He appeared in the doorway, hair still wet from the shower, jaw already set like he was late for something. We leaving soon? In 10, Clara said. I packed sandwiches. Water's in the cooler. Lily thumped down the hall. Mom, can I wear your sunglasses? Take the blue ones, Clara said. The black ones are too big. Ethan ran past with a towel trailing behind him like a cape. I'm a lifeguard, he yelled. Daniel managed to smile at that. Let's go, crew. On the beach, the morning air was cool and clean. Families were already staked out with umbrellas. A few surfers cut neat, sharp lines through the waves. Clara spread their blanket. Daniel took the kids to the water's edge to jump the small breakers. She watched him lift Ethan high and pretend to toss him into a wave. Ethan's laugh carried on the wind and landed in Clara's chest. She tucked the moment away like a keepsake. Mom, come see, Lily called. There's a crab. Clara jogged down, caught Daniel's eye, and for a heartbeat she saw the man she married, the one who used to read her drafts and argue over headlines at midnight just for fun. He used to call her the sharpest pencil in the drawer. They had been a team. Then the kids came and the team changed, and she told herself that change was normal. A shout rolled down the shoreline. Help! Someone! Please! Heads turned. A woman far down the beach waved both arms, pointing out to sea. Clara squinted against the glare. At first she thought it was a seal. Then she saw it. A head bobbing, arms slapping. The water wrong, weak and frantic. Daniel was already moving. He shoved his phone and wallet into Clara's hands. Stay here, he said. Call 911. She fumbled for her phone, fingers stiff. Yes, emergency. Someone's drowning. Whalers Cove, south side. By the time she looked up, Daniel was cutting through the water in long strokes. He was a strong swimmer, college swim team, long summers as a lifeguard. He'd saved people before, but never like this. Never with her heart beating in her throat and the kids gripping her waist. Is Daddy okay? Ethan asked. He's fine, Clara said, voice steady because it had to be. He knows what to do. The woman in the water went under for a moment. Clara's lungs seized. Then Daniel reached the spot and went under too. A wave rolled over them both. When it broke, Daniel came up one arm, around the woman's chest, turning her onto her back. He kicked hard, towing her in. People gathered at the shoreline. "Give them space," someone shouted. "Back up." Daniel carried the woman through the shallows and laid her on the wet sand. She coughed, sputtered, and rolled to her side. Daniel tilted her head and kept talking to her. "You're okay," he said. "You're okay." Clara rushed forward with a towel. "Here." The woman looked up, and Clara's breath snagged. Blonde hair darkened by salt water. Sharp cheekbones Clara had seen in old photos. Eyes the color of cold glass. Sophie Miller, Daniel's ex. She hadn't seen Sophie in almost a decade. Last she heard, Sophie moved away, got into some lifestyle marketing, traveled a lot. Seeing her now felt like a door opening to a room Clara never wanted to visit again. "Daniel." Sophie's voice broke. "You?" "Yeah," he panted. "It's me." Sophie's hand gripped his wrist like a child grips a ledge. "You saved me." He smiled down at her. A small, private smile that made something tilt inside Clara. "You're safe." Paramedics arrived. They checked Sophie's pulse, put an oxygen mask over her face, wrapped her in a blanket. She kept her eyes on Daniel the whole time, and when they lifted her to the gurney, she reached for him again. He walked beside them up the beach as if pulled by a string. "Mom," Lily whispered. "Who is that?" "Someone Dad used to know," Clara said. "He helped her. That's what matters." She meant it. In that moment, she meant it with everything she had. Her husband had saved a life. She was proud. She told herself the tight heat behind her ribs was only adrenaline. She told herself not to be small. Sophie was stable and refused the hospital. She sat under their umbrella, shivering and smiling. With gratitude. "I can't believe it's you," she said to Daniel. "Out of everyone on this planet, it had to be you." "Small world," he said. "I didn't recognize you at first," Sophie said, looking past Clara as if she was part of the scenery. "You look different." Clara tucked a wet strand behind her ear. "We have 2 kids," she said lightly. "Different comes with the job." Sophie's eyes widened at the children. "You're a father. Daniel, you're a dad." He nodded. "This is Lily and Ethan. And my wife, Clara." Sophie turned to Clara with an airy smile. "Thank you for sharing him with the world today." Clara held her gaze. "He always had a way of showing up when it mattered." "Still does," Sophie said softly, eyes back on Daniel. Clara felt the smallest shiver cross her arms, though the sun was warm. She wrapped the beach towel tighter and told herself not to read into looks. People drifted away. The moment turned back to normal. The kids wanted snacks. Daniel insisted on walking Sophie to her car. "Just to make sure she's steady," he said. Clara packed the cooler, folded the blanket, and watched their silhouettes move up the path. She told herself she wasn't jealous. She told herself she was reasonable. She told herself all the things a steady wife tells herself because she believes it's her job. They drove back to the cottage in careful silence, the kids asleep in the back. Daniel's hands were calm on the wheel. He looked lighter, Clara realized. Not only proud, lit from something else. He'd done something good. He deserved to feel that way. That night, she rubbed aloe on his shoulders. "You were brave," she said. "I'm proud of you." He shrugged, almost embarrassed. "Anyone would have done it." "Not like you," she said. He glanced at her, then away. "Sophie," she said, "she's staying at a place on Bay Street. She's still shaken up. I told her I'd check in tomorrow." Clara nodded. "That's kind." He put his phone on the nightstand face down. "It's nothing. She almost died." "I know." He looked at the ceiling. "You don't mind." "I said it's kind," she repeated. Her voice was even. Inside, a pin slid into a small, precise hole. Something clicked. 2 days later, the shift began. It was small at first. He corrected how she cut the sandwiches. "Too thick for the kids," he said, taking the knife from her hand. He critiqued her swimsuit. A brighter color would be fun. Sophie said bright suits are safer in the water. He laughed like it was a harmless tip. Clara smiled and said nothing. He started coming home later. Just swung by to see how she's coping. He described how Sophie was brave, how she didn't panic. She's been through a lot, he said one night. People don't know how strong she is. Clara folded laundry and lined up tiny socks. You always liked that about her, she said. What? The way she looks brave. He frowned. That wasn't fair. Maybe not, Clara said. She kept folding. He began to treat the house like an airport lounge. Drop in, recharge, leave. Lily noticed. Dad's always busy now, she said at dinner. Ethan asked, is he still a hero if he's not here? Clara swallowed and smiled for them. Heroes also work. We're okay. At night, she woke to the whisper of his voice in the hall. Laughter floated through the cracked door. Not his laugh, not when he told jokes to the kids or teased her about her coffee addiction. This was softer. The kind he used when he wanted to be charming. The kind he used before they were married. The kind he used when he wanted something. Yeah, he said once, low and warm. I remember that sophomore. When he came back to bed, Clara pretended to sleep. He smelled like the salt and citrus cologne he hadn't worn in years. On Saturday, Daniel's parents came by. Margaret Bennett wore pearls and cold perfume. Charles carried a bottle of wine and the sense that he was doing Clara a favor by ringing the bell. We heard about the rescue, Margaret said, taking a seat without being offered. A wonderful thing. And you must be grateful, Clara. Not every man would know what to do. He's always been good under pressure, Clara said. Margaret's smile was a thin ribbon. We ran into Sophie once at a charity luncheon. Such poise. She's done very well for herself. Clara's hands rested on the back of a chair. I'm sure she has. Margaret glanced at Daniel. Daniel, you've always had a way of lifting people. I hope that girl appreciates it. Clara felt something in her chest harden. After they left, she leaned against the sink, listening to the clock. Daniel stood at the window, phone in hand. I'm meeting Sophie at the pier, he said casually. She still gets flashbacks. I can help her talk it out. Clara nodded once. Do the kids need dinner before you go? He didn't answer the question. I won't be late. He was. Sunday morning, Clara made pancakes. The kids fought over syrup. She sang a dumb song to make them laugh. Daniel came in, kissed the crown of Lily's head, and poured coffee without looking at his wife. Clara, he said, like he'd been rehearsing. Can we talk? She wiped her hands and faced him. Yes. I think you've let yourself go a bit. He began, voice gentle, words sharp. Not just appearance. Everything. The house. Your ambition. Sophie said. She held up her hand. Stop. His eyes flashed. I'm trying to be honest. Then be honest with yourself, she said. You like how she looks at you. You like how the world looked at you after the rescue. You feel big again. He blinked, surprised, then smoothed his features. She almost died. I know. He left for a quick check-in and returned after midnight. Clara lay awake and stared at the ceiling. In the silence, truth rose like tide water. She had given up her newsroom and grabbed onto this family with both hands because love to her was building. She could feel him unbuilding it piece by piece. She started watching, not to trap him, to confirm what her skin already knew. His phone, once face up, was always face down. He took it with him to the bathroom. He changed his password. He began to shave in the evening. He bought a new shirt and said it was on sale. When he hugged her, his arms did the motion but no weight rested on her. One night, past midnight, the soft laugh returned through the thin wall. So you remember the hotel on Seaport? Daniel murmured. Clara sat up, heartbeat loud. She swung her legs over the bed and stood barefoot on the cool floor. In the mirror, she looked like a woman who had walked a long way without water. She walked to the hall and stopped just before he could see her. "Tomorrow then," he said into the phone, voice dipped in honey. "Same place." In the morning, Clara packed the kids' lunches and set them on the counter. "I'm going into town," she told Lily. "Mrs. Harris next door will watch you for an hour. I'll be back before school." "Okay," Lily said, trusting and bright. Clara kissed her forehead and tucked Ethan's hair behind his ear. "Be good for Mrs. Harris." She drove toward the water with the windows down so the cold air would keep her from shaking. The hotel sat on a corner near the harbor, glass doors polished, a lobby that smelled like lemons. And money. She parked across the street and waited. At 10:15, a rideshare pulled up. Sophie stepped out, the ocean light catching her hair. She wore a white dress that made her look like she hadn't almost drowned at all. She checked her phone, smiled at something on the screen, and walked inside. Clara stared at the glass doors, the revolving circles of people whose lives had never touched hers. She could still turn around, she thought. She could pretend she never saw. She could go home and bake cookies and tell herself he was just being kind to someone who needed kindness. But she had been a journalist once. She knew the value of facts. 10:20 Daniel arrived. No hesitation. No look over his shoulder. He walked through the same doors a man makes when he knows exactly why he is there. Clara got out of the car on legs that didn't feel like hers. She crossed the street. Inside, the lobby glowed warm. Pianist played something soft. She stepped to the desk and smiled at the woman in a navy blazer. "Good morning," Clara said. "My husband checked in ahead of me. Daniel Bennett. I think they put us under his name." The clerk typed, nodded, then frowned. "I'm sorry. I'm not seeing a Clara on the reservation, but I do see Mr. Bennett in a room." Clara leaned in just enough to see the room number flash on the screen before the clerk moved to cover it. 428. "Thank you," Clara said, voice faint, and walked away as if she'd forgotten something, as if she hadn't just felt the ground slip. She took the elevator alone. The mirrored walls made 3 Claras, then 4. The doors opened. On the 4th floor, carpet quiet under her feet. She counted the rooms. 422. 424. 426. She stopped at 428. For a long breath, she stood still. She could hear voices muffled and close. A laugh she knew was his, a higher laugh that slid under her skin like cold water. Clara raised her hand and knocked. Silence fell. Then a whisper. Then the lock clicked, and the door opened a narrow inch. Daniel's face appeared in the gap, color draining as if someone had pulled it out of him with a straw. Behind him, a flash of white. The edge of a dress, a bare shoulder, a gasp. "Clara," he said, voice empty of anything that could save him. Her gaze dropped to his unbuttoned collar. She lifted her eyes and saw it clear. The same look she'd spotted on the beach, lit up, chosen, alive. Only this time it was not a life he saved. It was the one he was willing to drown. "Room service," Sophie called brightly, too bright. Clara didn't answer. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. The moment made its own sound like glass, cracking somewhere deep. She held his stare for a full, clean second, long enough to make it real, and then she turned and walked back down the hall, her steps even, her spine straight, her name returning to her one quiet syllable at a time. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and how did this story speak to you? Clara waited until the kids were asleep. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. Daniel sat in the living room scrolling on his phone, the glow lighting his sharp features. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. "We need to talk." He didn't look up. "About what?" "About Sophie. About you being gone all the time." About the way you look at me like I'm furniture. Daniel sighed like she was nagging. Clara, not tonight. Yes, tonight. Her voice cracked. I've been patient. I've been silent. But I can't keep pretending. This is normal. You spend every night out. You don't even notice when the kids are crying for you. Finally, he looked up. His eyes were cold, flat. You've become invisible, Clara. Sophie makes me feel alive again. The words landed like a knife. She staggered back a step. Invisible? After everything I gave up? After raising your children? Keeping your home? Putting my dreams aside? You chose that, he cut in. I never asked you to quit journalism. I never asked you to give up. That was you. Her hands trembled. I chose us. I chose family. And you. Daniel stood, towering over her. Sophie sees me. You just expect. You keep score. She laughs at my stories. She looks at me like I matter. You don't understand what that feels like. Anymore. Clara's chest ached as though he'd physically struck her. She's your past. I'm your wife. He smirked. Maybe that was a mistake. The days that followed bled together in sharp cuts of disappointment. Daniel missed Lily's school recital. Clara had dressed their daughter in her best dress, tied a bow in her hair, and sat in the front row with Ethan on her lap. She watched Lily's small face scan the crowd, searching for her father. When the performance ended, Clara hugged her tightly and whispered, Daddy wanted to be here, but Lily knew. She didn't cry, but her eyes dimmed. On Ethan's birthday, Daniel promised he'd be home early. He showed up after midnight, smelling of whiskey and Sophie's perfume. The half-eaten cake sat on the counter. The candles melted into wax puddles. Clara had blown them out with Ethan, pretending it was a fun game. When she confronted Daniel again, he shrugged. Work dinner. Work doesn't wear red lipstick on your collar, she said softly. He didn't bother denying it. Sophie, meanwhile, wasn't subtle. She posted photos online, champagne glasses clinking, her hand with Daniel's watch visible, a reflection in a restaurant mirror that showed his profile. To the public, it was coy. To Clara, it was a knife twisting deeper. Her phone buzzed with messages from acquaintances. Is this your husband? Thought you should see this. She stopped replying. Silence was her only shield. One evening, Margaret and Charles Bennett invited Clara to their home. She dressed carefully, hoping maybe they wanted to talk sense into their son. Their mansion was immaculate. Clara sat on the edge of a leather sofa, hands folded in her lap. Margaret sipped her wine. Clara, you've been good for Daniel, but lately it's clear this marriage has run its course. Clara blinked. Run its course? We have children. Charles leaned forward, voice smooth. Daniel needs someone who elevates him. Sophie is sophisticated, well-connected. She can help him in ways you can't. Clara's throat burned. You're his parents. You should be encouraging him to work on his marriage, not destroy it. Margaret's smile was sharp. Sometimes love means letting go. You've dragged him down long. Enough. Clara stood, her knees trembling. I gave him everything, and you'd trade me for someone who looks better in your country club photos. They didn't deny it. She walked out, her chest hollow, her ears ringing with humiliation. The final blow came a week later. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, a checkbook open, documents spread out. What's all this? Clara asked cautiously. Finances, he said flatly. I'm moving out. The words hung in the air, heavy and cold. What about the children? She whispered. I'll see them when I can. Clara gripped the back of a chair. You're draining our account? He didn't look guilty. I earned it. You'll manage. Maybe it's time you start working again. Her voice rose, breaking. You're leaving us. For her? For Sophie. He stood, buttoning his coat. Don't make this ugly. She makes me happy. That's what matters. Clara's hands clenched. You'll regret this. Daniel shrugged. Doubt it. And with that, he was gone. The house felt emptier than it ever had. Bills piled on the counter. The children asked questions. She didn't know how to answer. At night, she cried into a pillow so they wouldn't hear. But the truth, the real truth, came weeks later. Clara ran into an old friend at the grocery store, a woman named Hannah who had connections in town. Hannah lowered her voice. "You know Sophie's drowning? It wasn't an accident." Clara frowned. "What do you mean?" "She planned it. She made sure Daniel was there. She told people before that she had a way to get him back. She staged the whole thing." The air rushed out of Clara's lungs. "You're saying?" "I'm saying she knew exactly what she was doing." Clara stood frozen in the produce aisle, gripping a bag of apples she didn't remember picking up. Her mind reeled. The rescue, the tears, the gratitude. It had all been theater, a trap, and Daniel walked straight into it. Clara realized then it wasn't just betrayal. It was manipulation, and she and her children were the collateral. She walked out of the store, apples still in the cart, her heart pounding with something sharper than grief. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The mornings were the hardest. Clara woke before the alarm, her chest heavy, the silence pressing against her. The bed was cold on Daniel's side, though he hadn't slept there for weeks. Bills covered the kitchen counter like a second layer of wallpaper. Lily patted in one morning, her hair tangled, her eyes tired. "Mom, do we still have money for field trips?" Clara smiled the smile she had been practicing. "Of course, baby." She lied because the truth would crush them both. After dropping the children at school, she changed into her waitress uniform for the diner, worked the morning rush, changed again into black slacks for her afternoon cleaning job, and sometimes spent evenings babysitting for neighbors. She kept moving because stopping meant feeling, and feeling meant drowning. At night, when the kids were asleep, she let the tears come. Quiet, careful tears so they wouldn't hear. It was during a catering gig at a charity gala that everything began to shift. Clara carried a tray of champagne flutes through a glittering ballroom, the chandeliers throwing diamonds of light across the polished floor. Men in tuxedos and women in sequin gowns laughed easily, their world far removed from hers. She balanced the tray, weaving between clusters of donors, when a calm voice stopped her. "Excuse me." She turned. The man wasn't like the others. He didn't carry himself with arrogance. His tux was simple, no flash. His eyes were steady, curious. "I noticed you've been watching the speeches instead of the guests," he said. "You used to be in media, didn't you?" Clara blinked, startled. "How could you possibly know that?" "Your eyes," he said simply. "Reporters look at rooms differently." She laughed once, softly. "I was a journalist. A long time ago. Why stop?" She adjusted the tray in her hands. "Life, family, choices, or sacrifices," he said gently. Her throat tightened. She gave a small nod. "I'm Alexander Cole." He offered a hand. She hesitated, then shook it quickly. His grip was firm, not overpowering. "Clara Bennett," she said. Something flickered in his eyes, like he recognized her name, but he let it pass. "You're wasted, carrying champagne." She bristled. "It's a job that hides talent," he replied. The next day, Clara received a call from an unfamiliar number. "This is Alexander Cole's office," the voice said. "Mr. Cole would like to meet regarding a temporary position, public relations." Clara almost hung up, but curiosity and desperation made her agree. At his downtown office, Alexander handed her a stack of press releases. "Edit these, cut the fluff, make them breathe." She sat at the sleek desk, red pen in hand. Within an hour, she had transformed lifeless jargon into sharp, compelling stories. Alexander returned, scanned her work, and raised his brows. "You still have it." Clara shrugged. "Once a reporter, always a reporter." He leaned back. "Then why waste it?" "I told you. Family. Daniel, he wanted stability." Alexander studied her. "And what did you want?" Clara hesitated. "I don't know anymore." Then find out, he said. Start here. Temporary contract. Low stakes. But prove yourself. Her chest tightened with something she hadn't felt in years, possibility. I'll try. Weeks turned into months. Clara worked part-time at Coal Industries while still juggling other jobs. She edited, drafted statements, handled media calls. Her instincts sharpened quickly and Alexander noticed. You cut through noise better than my executives, he said one afternoon. That's rare. She flushed. I just know what people pay attention to. He smiled faintly. No, you know how to tell the truth even when dressing it up. That's rarer. His words planted something inside her. A seed of pride. Meanwhile, Daniel's world was unraveling. Word trickled back through whispers. Sophie spent recklessly. She dragged him to luxury resorts, posted photos with captions like, "Living my best life." Daniel appeared only in blurred reflections, or the corner of her selfies, like an accessory she barely acknowledged. Clara overheard neighbors. Did you see Sophie's post? She called Daniel her sidekick. Can you imagine? Clara tucked her chin and kept walking. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just held Lily's, and Ethan's hands tighter. One night, Daniel showed up unannounced. He stood on the porch, rumpled, smelling faintly of alcohol. Clara, can we talk? She crossed her arms. About what? She's not who I thought, he muttered. She laughs at me, says I'm pathetic without my family man image. Clara, she doesn't understand me like you do. Her jaw clenched. You made your choice. I made a mistake. Her eyes burned, but her voice was steady. Mistakes don't empty bank accounts and abandon children. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal. He reached out, but she stepped back. Go home, Daniel. Wherever that is now. He left, shoulders slumped. She closed the door and leaned against it, shaking. At work, Alexander continued to be steady, patient. He never pushed, never asked for more than she could give. One evening, after a long day, he walked her to the elevator. You've grown, he said simply. Into what? She asked. Into yourself again. She looked down. It doesn't feel like enough. He studied her. A good man builds your peace. A bad man feeds on your silence. Which do you think you've had? Clara swallowed hard. The wrong one. Then stop feeding him, Alexander said. The twist came quietly. One night, Alexander called her into his office. His tone was serious. I need to tell you something. Not as your boss, but as someone who respects you. Clara tensed. What is it? I did some digging. Sophie Miller and your mother-in-law, Evelyn Bennett, know each other. Same private club. Same charity boards. Sophie didn't just stumble back into Daniel's life. She was introduced. Clara's stomach dropped. Introduced. Alexander nodded. Evelyn believed Sophie could give Daniel status. Sophie wanted access to the Bennett name. You were never meant to last. Clara's hands shook. They planned it? From the beginning. Yes. His voice was gentle. You were collateral. She stood, pacing. Images rushed back. The rescue, Sophie's gratitude, Evelyn's smug looks. The drowning hadn't been fate. It had been bait. And Daniel swallowed it whole. Clara's throat tightened. All this time I thought I wasn't enough. Turns out I was too much of a threat to their perfect picture. Alexander stepped closer. Don't carry their shame. It was never yours. Her eyes filled, but her spine straightened. Then I'll show them I don't break that easily. Alexander gave a small nod. That's the Clara I see. That night, Clara lay awake listening to her children breathe. She thought of Margaret's sharp smile, Sophie's stage drowning, Daniel's cold words. They had tried to erase her, to write her out of her own story, but she wasn't erased. She was still here, working, fighting, rising. And for the first time, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't ending. Was just beginning again. Clara had learned to walk into boardrooms without shrinking. At first, she had carried herself like a guest in Alexander Cole's world, unsure if she belonged, afraid someone would point and ask her to leave. But now, a year later, she walked as if she owned her space. Her heels clicked against marble floors, her head held high, her notes precise and sharp. She wasn't just the woman Daniel abandoned. She wasn't invisible. She was Clara Bennett, the lead PR strategist for one of the biggest corporate campaigns of the year. Magazines wrote about her brilliance. A natural storyteller, one article praised. Clara Bennett is the strategist who turns silence into power. At night, she tucked Lily and Ethan into bed, kissed their foreheads, and thought, "This is enough. This is mine." And then the past came crawling back. It happened at a press event in a downtown hotel. Clara stood behind the podium, cameras flashing, microphones angled toward her. She announced the launch of a campaign supporting women entrepreneurs. Her words were measured, strong. The applause had barely settled when she saw him. Daniel. He stood at the back of the room, thinner than she remembered, his suit ill-fitting, his eyes shadowed. Her heart didn't lurch. It didn't ache. It only steadied because she had expected this someday. After the event, while reporters swarmed, Daniel pushed through the crowd. "Clara!" His voice cracked. "Wait. Please wait." She froze, the cameras still rolling. He reached her, gaunt and desperate, his hand trembling as he extended it. "For the children," he begged. "Clara, I've made mistakes. Sophie, she used me. She's gone now. But you were my real home." She held her folder tight against her chest. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "For the children, you abandoned them on birthdays and recitals. You left them to chase a ghost of your past. You chose that." Daniel's eyes filled. "I was wrong. I see that now. Please, just stop," Clara said, her voice cutting through the room. The silence after was sharper than shouting. Later that week, Margaret and Charles Bennett appeared at her office without warning. They looked smaller somehow, humbled. "Clara," Margaret said, her pearls trembling against her neck. "We were wrong. Sophie betrayed us all. She humiliated Daniel, drained him. We should have supported you. We see that now." Charles cleared his throat. "The family name is in ruins. If you'd consider reconciling, it could restore things. For the children." Clara's hands rested on the desk, steady as stone. "I was your convenience," she said evenly, "until something shinier came along. I am not your second choice, and I will never be your safe place again." Margaret's lips trembled. "Clara." No, her voice was firm. "You don't get to rewrite history now that it hurts you." The night of the corporate gala, Clara arrived in a simple black gown. Alexander walked beside her, his presence steady, silent, grounding. He didn't try to overshadow her. He didn't claim credit. He simply existed as proof that love didn't need to be loud to be real. "You ready?" he murmured. "I've never been more ready," she whispered back. The event glowed with champagne glasses and soft music. Reporters circled, snapping photos. Clara shook hands, answered questions, laughed softly when Grace texted her. "You look like a queen who finally took her throne." And then chaos broke. Daniel appeared again. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had been served papers months ago, a restraining order that he ignored now as he shoved through the crowd. His hair was disheveled, his eyes wild. "Clara!" he shouted, his voice raw. "How dare you parade around like this? After everything." Security moved in, but he was faster. He cornered her near the gallery of campaign posters, his face inches from hers. "You humiliated me," he hissed. "You destroyed me. You owe me a chance to explain." Clara's jaw tightened. She didn't flinch. She didn't speak. Ethan, steady Ethan, saw the scene from across the room and strode forward. "Back away," he ordered, his voice firm. Daniel sneered. "Of course. The replacement. The savior. The man who gets my leftovers." He lunged, fist rising. Security tackled him before the swing landed. Cameras flashed wildly. Reporters shouted. Clara stood tall, her expression calm. She handed a folder to the nearest officer. Inside, months of evidence, emails, voicemails, photos of him lurking outside her home. The restraining order. Private investigators report. I've been documenting everything, she said clearly. He violated the order. He stalked me. This is proof. Daniel fought against the cuffs as the officers pulled him up. You can't do this to me. I'm Daniel Bennett. She's nothing without me. The crowd gasped, cameras catching every word. Clara's gaze met his. Her voice carried like steel through the chaos. Funny, she said calmly, because I've never been more myself. The headline blazed across every screen by morning. Ex-husband of rising PR strategist arrested for harassment at gala. Daniel's photo in cuffs. Clara's face serene. Alexander at her side. The contrast told the story better than words ever could. Afterward, Clara stood with Alexander on the balcony of her apartment, the city glowing below. Lily and Ethan slept peacefully inside. You didn't need to say anything, Alexander murmured. But you did, and it was perfect. Clara smiled faintly. I wasn't speaking for him. I was speaking for me, for the woman who thought silence was strength when really it was just surrender. He touched her hand gently. Not anymore. She exhaled. For the first time in years, the air didn't hurt her lungs.
Can we have your leftovers, Ma? But when the millionaire looked at them, everything changed. It was midnight. The rain came down hard. Thunder roared like an angry beast, and lightning flashed like the eye of God watching. Under a broken zinc shed behind the locked shops of Unity Plaza, two small boys lay curled together on a torn nylon mat. They were shaking, not just from the cold, but from hunger. Their stomachs had been empty for 2 days. Daniel, are you sleeping? Whispered one of them, his voice weak like someone who had cried too long. No, David, the other replied, his eyes open wide in the dark. My belly is making noise. Mine too. It's talking, David said with a sad smile. They both chuckled quietly. Then silence came again. Daniel and David were just 10 years old. Identical twins. Thin like broomsticks. Their hair was dusty. Their eyes, tired. They had no home, no parents, no food, no peace. Their mother had died when they were just 5. She was the only light they had. Their father had left long before she died. No one knew where he went. Some said he was in Ghana. Others said he died in an accident. The twins didn't care anymore. It didn't change anything. They were alone. They had moved from sleeping at the back of one shop to another, chased like rats each time a new security man arrived. Sometimes, market women would throw them leftover rice if they were lucky. Other times, all they got were insults. But tonight, even insults didn't come. Just rain and hunger. Daniel, tomorrow let's try something different, David said slowly. What? Daniel asked, sitting up slightly. Let's go to that big place in town. That fancy restaurant where rich people go. Maybe, just maybe, we can beg for food. Not money. Just food. Daniel frowned. They will chase us. You remember how the last one chased us with a mop? Yes, I remember. But let's try again. I'm tired of eating dust and drinking water from sachets we find on the ground. I want to eat real food, even if just once. Silence. Then Daniel nodded. Okay. The next morning came with bright sunshine and the smell of fried beans from nearby stalls. The boys washed their faces with rainwater and tried to comb their hair with their fingers. Daniel used an old sachet water bag to wipe his brother's cheeks. David wiped his mouth with the bottom of his shirt. They walked. 4 hours. Past schools where children laughed. Past shops where mothers bought snacks for their kids. Past places that reminded them of what they didn't have. Finally, they reached the big place, Rose Gold Restaurant. It was in the heart of the city. Glass doors. Flowers on each side. Waiters dressed like TV stars. Cars parked outside were so shiny the boys could see their reflections. Should we really do this? Daniel whispered. Yes, David said, his voice firmer than ever. We're not stealing. We're only asking. They stood by the entrance for 10 minutes. No one noticed them. Or maybe no one wanted to. Then they saw her. A young woman. Maybe in her late 20s. She wore a soft pink gown that moved with the wind. Her gold earrings danced in the sun. Her skin was smooth like chocolate, and her smile was the kind that made you want to talk to her. She sat by the window, alone, eating jollof rice, plantain, grilled fish, and salad. A cold drink stood beside her plate. Let's ask her, David whispered. No. Let's wait till she's done. Then we can ask for her leftovers, Daniel said. They waited. Watching. Hoping. As she picked the last plantain, they walked closer. Their feet were bare. Their hands trembled. When she stood up, Daniel rushed forward. His voice broke. Excuse me, Ma. Please. Can we have your leftovers? She paused. Looked at them. Really looked. Her eyes moved from their feet to their hands. Then their faces. And then, something changed. Something in her eyes. It was no longer surprise. It was something deeper. Like recognition. Like pain. Like a wound she thought had healed, but didn't. She stepped closer. What's your name? She asked. I'm Daniel. And he's David, Daniel replied, trying hard not to cry. You two are twins? She asked softly. Yes, Ma. She looked away briefly, then back at them. Come with me. The boys looked at each other. Was this a trick? Would she call the security? But they followed her. She didn't take them into the restaurant. She took them into her car. A white SUV that smelled like fresh bread and roses. As she drove, she didn't say a word. The boys sat in silence, too afraid to speak, too shocked to understand what was happening. But deep down, something in them was beginning to believe. Maybe, just maybe, their story was about to change. Because when the millionaire looked at them, everything changed. The car moved slowly through the city traffic. Inside the SUV, silence filled the air. But it was not the kind of silence that made you afraid. It was the kind that made you wonder. Daniel sat by the window, his small hands on his lap. David sat in the middle, eyes shifting between the driver and his brother. The woman kept her eyes on the road. Her hands held the steering gently, like someone who had done this drive many times. But this time, her face was not calm. Her brows were drawn together, and every now and then, she blinked fast like someone trying to hide tears. Daniel cleared his throat. Ma, where are we going? She glanced at them through the mirror. Somewhere safe. David's heart raced. Are you taking us to the police? No, she said softly. I'm taking you home. The boys froze. Home? What was that again? Was it the wooden bench behind the bakery where they sometimes slept? Was it the corner near the mechanic's workshop where they washed tires for 10 naira? No one had said the word home to them in years. You don't know us, Daniel said, trying to be brave. The woman looked at them again. No, I don't. But God does. And He sent you to me for a reason. Her voice shook a little at the end. The car stopped in front of a large white gate with flowers hanging over it. 2 security men quickly opened it when they saw her. The boys stared in shock as the car entered a quiet compound with green grass, tall trees, and a big white house that looked like something out of a TV commercial. She parked the car and turned off the engine. Come inside. They followed her, scared to touch anything. Even the tiles at the entrance looked too clean for their bare feet. Inside, the house smelled like vanilla and new furniture. A housekeeper came out, surprised. Madam Alicia, welcome. Please, bring 2 plates of food. Hot food. And get the guest room ready. The woman, Alicia, led the boys to the dining room. Sit, she said, pulling out chairs. They sat slowly, unsure if it was a dream. Then the food came. Hot jollof rice, chicken, fried plantain, and cold water. David looked at Daniel. Daniel looked at the food. Can we eat? He asked quietly. Yes, Alicia said, sitting across from them. Eat until you're full. They didn't wait. They ate like lions. Tears rolled down Daniel's cheek as he chewed. David couldn't stop whispering thank you in between bites. The woman watched them closely. Not with pity, but with something deeper. Something that made her look like she was searching for something in their faces. When they finished eating, she asked them to follow her upstairs. She opened the door to a small but beautiful room. 2 clean beds. A wardrobe. A window with white curtains. A bathroom with soap and towels. "You'll sleep here tonight," she said. "There's hot water in the shower." The boys looked at each other in shock. She smiled a little. "You've had a hard life. But that ends today." As she turned to leave, David called out, "Ma." "Yes." "Why are you helping us?" She paused. Then she walked back and knelt beside them. "Because once upon a time, I was you." They blinked. "What do you mean?" Daniel asked. "I lost my mother when I was 8. My father ran away. I lived on the streets. Slept at markets. Ate from dustbins. Until one woman found me and took me in. She became my family. She believed in me. That belief is what made me who I am today." The boys were silent. "I made a promise," she continued, "that if I ever became someone, I would help children like me. And now, here you are. Just like I was." David's lips trembled. "So we can stay?" Alicia smiled, this time fully. "You're not just staying. You're starting again." That night, Daniel and David bathed with warm water for the first time in years. They wore clean clothes. They slept on beds that didn't smell of dust and fear. But Alicia didn't sleep. She sat in her study, looking at an old photo. A photo of herself at 10. Hungry, barefoot, and standing beside a dustbin. She whispered to the photo, "Mom and Ketchy, wherever you are. I kept my promise." Outside the door, Daniel and David slept peacefully. And for the first time in their young lives, they dreamt. They dreamt of home, and this time, they knew exactly what it looked like. The first thing David noticed when he woke up was the silence. Not the kind of silence filled with fear, like when they used to hide behind stores and listen for footsteps of angry guards. This silence was soft. Peaceful. It smelled like clean sheets and orange-scented soap. Daniel was still sleeping beside him, curled like a kitten. David reached out and touched the pillow again, just to be sure it wasn't a dream. Then he looked at the curtain. It danced gently as the morning sun poured into the room, painting the floor with golden light. He sat up slowly, afraid that moving too fast would break the magic. Just then, the door opened softly. Alicia stood there, holding 2 folded towels and a wide smile. "Good morning, gentlemen," she said. David smiled back shyly. "Good morning, Ma." Daniel rubbed his eyes and sat up, confused. "Where are we?" he asked. "You're in your new home," Alicia said, walking in. She placed the towels at the edge of the bed. "There's warm breakfast waiting downstairs. But first, go and take a nice shower. There's a toothbrush and sponge in the bathroom. Everything you need is there." The boys looked at each other again. They didn't even know what to say. Alicia knelt between them and touched their shoulders gently. "Listen," she said. "This is not a joke. You are safe here. This is your home now. And until God shows me otherwise, I will take care of you as my own." David burst into tears. Daniel tried to hold his, but it was useless. They both hugged her tightly, their small hands gripping her like she would disappear if they let go. Alicia held them quietly. She didn't rush. She didn't pull away. She just let them cry. Because sometimes, tears are the only way to wash away years of pain. After the bath, the boys came down to the dining room in the clothes Alicia had laid out for them. Matching shirts and shorts. Clean. Soft. And smelling like hope. The table had 2 plates of yam and egg sauce, with hot cocoa in mugs bigger than anything they'd ever held. As they ate, Alicia watched them. She didn't speak for a while. Then she asked gently, "Tell me about your mum." Daniel swallowed his food slowly. Her name was Grace. She sold Puff Puff and Acra by the roadside. David nodded. She used to sing to us at night. Even when we had no food, she would tell us stories. She died when we were 5. Alicia wiped her eyes quickly. "What about school? Did you go?" They shook their heads. "We started nursery," Daniel said. "But when Mama died, we had to stop." She nodded slowly. Well, that ends now. You'll go back to school. I'll register you next week. They looked up sharply. Really? David asked. Yes. And until then, you'll be here with me. You'll eat well, sleep well, and learn how to be boys again. No more surviving. Just living. Daniel smiled for the first time in a long time. But Alicia wasn't done. There's something else. She reached into her bag and pulled out 2 small ID cards. The names printed on them made the boys gasp. Daniel Hope Johnson. David Hope Johnson. They looked up at her with wide eyes. I added Hope, because that's what you are. And Johnson is my surname. You're part of this family now. Daniel blinked. So we have names. Real names? You always had names, she said softly. Now, you have a future. The boys stood and ran to her. They hugged her again. Tighter this time. Not because they were afraid she would disappear, but because they finally believed she wasn't going to. That afternoon, Alicia took them to a nearby supermarket. The twins had never seen anything like it. Cold air, shelves full of shiny snacks, and people smiling as they picked what they wanted. Alicia pushed the cart. Pick anything you like, she said. David hesitated. Anything. Yes. You are allowed to want good things now. They picked biscuits, juice, toothpaste, pencils, and storybooks. Daniel even picked a football. When they got to the counter, the cashier looked at the boys and smiled. Madam Alicia, your nephews are cute. Alicia didn't correct her. She just smiled. On the way home, the twins sat in the back seat, holding their new things like treasure. David whispered, Daniel, are you still thinking what I'm thinking? Daniel nodded. Yes. Maybe this is how Mama would have wanted it. Back at the house, Alicia stood by the door and watched them run inside, laughing. Their laughter filled the house. It was the sound of healing. But as Alicia turned to lock the door, she paused. Across the street, an old man sat in a black car, watching her house quietly. He picked up his phone and made a call. I found them, he said in a low voice. The boys. They're alive. The next morning, Daniel was up before sunrise. He sat on the balcony, holding the football Alicia had bought him. The sky was still dark, but his heart felt lighter than it had in years. Downstairs, Alicia was already dressed. She had a meeting in the city but promised the boys she'd be back before lunch. David is still asleep, Daniel said as she stepped onto the balcony. She smiled. Let him rest. You both deserve peace now. He nodded, gripping the ball. Ma, thank you. Alicia bent down beside him. For what? For not walking away. She smiled again, kissed his forehead, and whispered, God didn't walk away from me. Why should I walk away from you? Daniel watched her drive off, her car slowly disappearing behind the gates. Just a few houses down the street, in that same black car from the day before, the old man was back. He had watched the house all night. He saw Alicia leave. Now it was time. He stepped out of the car slowly. His clothes were old but neat. He walked with a slight limp. His eyes were sunken, but sharp. He walked to the gate and knocked. 3 soft knocks. Inside, David was now awake and brushing his teeth when he heard it. Daniel peeked through the window. Somebody's at the gate. The housekeeper, Mama Risi, came to check. She was a short, round woman with quick feet and a sharp tongue. Who is there? She called out. Good morning, madam, the old man said calmly. My name is Mr. Raymond. I'm looking for Alicia Johnson. She's not at home, Mama Risi replied. I know, the man said. I came to see the boys. Mama Risi narrowed her eyes. Which boys? The twins. That caught Daniel's attention. He ran to the gate and peeped through the small hole. The old man saw him. His lips parted. His hands trembled slightly. Daniel. Daniel froze. How do you know my name? The man's voice shook. Because I'm your grandfather. Everything went quiet. Mama Risi blinked. David joined his brother. What did he say? The old man stepped back. I know this sounds strange. But please, ask Alicia. She knows Grace, your mother. She knows me too. But our mother never told us about a grandfather, Daniel whispered. The man's face fell. She wouldn't. After I rejected her. David frowned. You rejected her? I was a proud man. When she got pregnant and the man disappeared, I kicked her out. I was angry. Foolish. I told her never to come back. And she didn't. He sniffed and looked down. I searched for her after I got sick. After the stroke. But I was too late. I found out she died, but not that she had children. Not until last week, when someone told me about two boys always sleeping near the plaza. The twins were silent. Everything felt upside down. He reached into his bag and pulled out a photo. It was old, worn out, but clear. A younger version of their mother stood smiling, holding two babies. Behind her stood the same man now at their gate. Daniel took the photo with shaky hands. It was real. He turned to Mama Risi. What should we do? She frowned. Alicia said no visitors while she's away. But David whispered, let him wait. Outside. Mama Risi hesitated, then brought out a plastic chair and placed it near the gate. You'll wait here. No funny move, old man, she warned. The old man nodded, eyes full of regret. I will wait. He sat down slowly, coughing lightly. Time passed. The sun rose higher. The twins stayed close to the window, staring at him from time to time. When Alicia returned at noon, she walked in smiling. But one look at the boys' faces made her pause. What happened? Daniel showed her the photo. Her smile vanished. Where is he? Outside, David said. Alicia didn't waste a second. She dropped her bag and walked straight to the gate. Raymond, she said. He stood slowly. Alicia. You have some nerve, she snapped. I'm not here to fight, he replied. You chased her. You watched her suffer. And now you come to do what? I came to ask for forgiveness. Alicia stared hard at him. You're 10 years too late. He nodded slowly. I know. But I didn't come for me. I came for them. She softened. Just a little. They don't need confusion, she said. They're healing. Don't pull them back into pain. He looked toward the window where the boys stood watching. I want to help, whatever way you allow. Alicia took a deep breath. Then she turned to the boys. Do you want to talk to him? They looked at each other. Daniel spoke first. Yes. David nodded. Alicia opened the gate fully. The boys stepped out slowly, carefully, and for the first time in their lives, they met the man who shared their blood. He knelt, slowly, painfully. I am sorry, he whispered. And Daniel, after a long pause, did something unexpected. He stepped forward and hugged him, not because the past was forgotten, but because something new had begun. The hug didn't last long, but it was heavy. It carried years of pain, questions, and quiet prayers. As Daniel wrapped his small arms around the old man's neck, David stood behind, unsure of what to do. His heart was loud. Too loud. He was still trying to understand how a stranger could suddenly call them blood. Alicia watched from the doorway, arms crossed, unsure herself. When Daniel finally pulled back, his eyes were wet. Are you really our grandfather? He asked. The old man nodded, still kneeling. Yes, Daniel. I am. I should have been there, but I failed. David's voice came quietly. Why did you send Mama away? Mr. Raymond looked at the ground. I was proud. And angry. I thought she had shamed the family by having children without marriage. I didn't even give her a chance to speak. I told her to leave and never come back. And she listened. The twins didn't speak. Their faces held more pain than any child should carry. Alicia stepped forward. All right, that's enough for one day. The boys need to rest. And process. She turned to Mr. Raymond. You can visit again. But slowly. No pressure. He looked at her with gratitude. Thank you. That evening, the house was quiet. Dinner came and went with little talking. The boys sat quietly at the table, eating without their usual excitement. Later, Alicia called them into the living room. She sat between them on the soft couch, holding their hands. "I know today brought many feelings," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "It's just. I didn't think we had any family left." David added, "What if he disappears again?" Alicia sighed. "That's a fair worry. Trust is not given, it's earned. And it takes time." She looked them in the eyes. "But here's what I promise you, you are safe. No matter what happens, I won't let anyone hurt you again." The boys leaned into her. In that moment, they weren't thinking about the past. They were resting in the present. In her arms. In the truth of her care. 3 weeks passed. Mr. Raymond visited every weekend. He brought toys, books, and stories of grace, stories the boys had never heard. He told them how their mother used to dance in the rain as a girl. How she used to sing to chickens and name them one by one. How she once sold oranges to buy her first school uniform. The boys listened like thirsty sponges. They smiled more. Laughed more. One day, he brought an old box. Inside were letters Grace had written to him before she died. He never read them, never opened them, until Alicia pushed him to. He cried that day. So did the boys. And for the first time, David hugged him. Slowly. But it came from his heart. But healing doesn't come without cracks. One morning, Alicia received a call from her office. Her assistant sounded troubled. "Ma, I think you should come quickly. There's been some strange activity on your personal account. Almost £1 million missing. Transferred to a name we don't recognize." Her heart dropped. She rushed to the office. Checked the logs. Checked the name. Raymond Johnson. The room spun. Her ears rang. She stormed back home, her car tires screeching as she parked. The boys were in the living room with Mr. Raymond, playing a puzzle game. "Boys, go to your room." They obeyed instantly. One look at Alicia's face, and they knew something was wrong. She turned to Raymond, her voice cold. "What did you do?" He stood slowly, confused. "What do you mean?" "You stole from me. From the boys. From this home." He staggered back. "No. Alicia, I didn't. I swear to you." "The account. The name. The transfer. Don't lie to me." Tears filled his eyes. "I haven't even touched a phone. You can check. I don't know anything about it." Her chest heaved. Her fists clenched. "I opened my heart. I let you in. And you took advantage of my kindness." He dropped to his knees. "No. Please. Don't do this. I would never hurt them. I came to make peace. Not trouble." But her eyes were steel. "Until I find out the truth, you're not welcome here." The boys peeked through the door. They saw their grandfather on his knees, crying, begging, and Alicia, shaking with betrayal. David whispered, "Is this what love does?" Daniel didn't reply. Because he didn't know either. All they knew was that the peace they were just beginning to feel was suddenly cracking again. That night, the air in the house was different. It wasn't quiet in the peaceful way it used to be. It was the kind of silence that made your chest heavy, like something invisible was pressing down on everyone. Daniel couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, his hands behind his head, thinking. David lay beside him, eyes open, not saying a word. "Do you think he did it?" Daniel finally asked. David didn't answer immediately. Then he sighed. "I don't know. But why would he steal from her? She helped him. She helped us." "I don't want to believe he did," Daniel whispered. "But..." Ma Alicia looked so sure. David rolled to his side. She wouldn't lie. That was the problem. They believed both of them. And now their hearts were torn in two. Downstairs, Alicia stood alone in the living room. The lights were off. Only the soft glow from outside made her figure visible. She was still in her work clothes, her heels kicked off. Her arms were crossed, and her thoughts were loud. Her mind kept replaying his face. The tears. The confusion. The way he knelt and swore he was innocent. Alicia didn't want to believe he would betray her. But her account had been tampered with. And the name on the transaction was Raymond Johnson. How else could it be explained? Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her lawyer friend, Kemi. I've looked into the transfer details again. Something isn't right. The account that received the money was opened just 3 days ago. And guess what? The ID used was fake. Alicia's eyes narrowed. Also, the CCTV footage outside your office caught a man wearing a delivery uniform sneaking into your office building the day the money was moved. Alicia blinked. A stranger? She typed back quickly. Can you get me the footage? Already sending it. A minute later, a video loaded. Alicia tapped it with shaky fingers. The footage was clear. A man in a face mask, wearing a courier jacket, entered through the back stairwell. He walked straight to the finance floor, used a fake access card, and within 15 minutes, walked out with something in hand. Alicia paused the video, zoomed in. The man wasn't old. He was young, skinny, fast. Definitely not Mr. Raymond. She gasped. Oh my God. It wasn't him. He didn't do it. He was innocent. Her heart twisted. She had thrown an old man out. Her son's only blood relative. And he had done nothing wrong. She ran upstairs to the boys' room. She opened the door gently. They sat up at once. We're awake, David said. I know, she replied softly. She walked in and sat between them. I made a mistake. They stared at her. I judged someone I didn't fully trust yet. I should have waited. Asked more questions. But I reacted in anger. Daniel's voice was quiet. So, he didn't steal? Alicia shook her head. No. He didn't. Someone else used his name. David frowned. Where is he now? I don't know, she said, her voice breaking. He left without saying a word. And I didn't ask where he was going. The room was still. Then Daniel stood. We have to find him. Alicia blinked. What? We can't leave it like this, he said. He needs to know we believe him now. David stood too. Yes. We have to tell him. Alicia looked at them. Their eyes held the same strength she remembered from their mother's face. That quiet, stubborn kind of love. She wiped her tears. All right. The next morning, they began the search. They asked drivers at the bus park. They asked security guards at nearby shelters. Alicia even spoke to churches and soup kitchens, hoping someone had seen an old man with a limp. Nothing. 3 days passed. Then one evening, as the boys and Alicia sat at a small local canteen, eating acro and pap, a little girl came up to them. Are you the madam that asked about the old man with a bad leg? She asked. Alicia nodded quickly. He dey stay inside that empty house behind the yellow church, the girl said, pointing down the street. He dey cough plenty. I saw him this morning. Without waiting, they rushed there. The house was small. Broken windows. A wooden door with cracks all over. They knocked. No answer. Then Daniel opened it gently. There on the floor, with nothing but a thin wrapper under him, lay Mr. Raymond. His face was pale. His eyes closed. His chest rising slowly. Grandpa! David shouted, running to him. The old man opened his eyes weakly. Daniel. David, you came. Alicia knelt beside him. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I was wrong. I judged you without proof. I should have trusted you. He smiled faintly. You were just protecting them. I understand. No, she said, tears falling. I didn't protect them. I hurt them by hurting you. She turned to the boys. We'll take him home. He needs care. He needs love. And for the first time in weeks, the boys smiled. That night, the house was warm again. Mr. Raymond lay in the guest room, wrapped in clean sheets, with food in his belly and peace in his heart. The twins sat beside him. And Alicia stood by the door, watching the family she never expected to have grow deeper and stronger than ever. Because trust, once broken, can be mended, if love leads the way. The morning came with soft rain tapping on the windows. It was the kind of rain that made people stay in bed a little longer, wrapping their blankets tighter, enjoying the calm. But in Alicia's house, no one was sleeping. Mr. Raymond was coughing again. His chest sounded heavy. The boys sat quietly beside him, watching his face, worried. Alicia stood at the doorway, arms folded, heart pounding. The doctor had come earlier and said it was a chest infection, made worse by stress and sleeping outside. He needed rest, medicine, and warmth. All of which he now had. But still, something in the way he smiled looked like goodbye. Daniel couldn't take it anymore. He reached for the old man's hand. "Please don't leave us." Raymond looked at him, then at David, and then at Alicia. His eyes were tired, but still kind. "I'm not leaving. Not yet." "Promise," David said. He chuckled softly. "I'll try." Later that day, Alicia brought in a small wooden box. She sat on the bed beside Mr. Raymond and placed it in his hands. "I found this in my mother's storage after she passed," she said. It was from Grace. Raymond's fingers shook as he opened the lid. Inside were old baby clothes, a worn-out Bible with Grace's name written on the inside, and a folded piece of paper. He opened the note slowly. His lips moved as he read, his eyes blinking fast. It was a letter from Grace. "If you're reading this, it means you're still alive, Papa. I wish we had made peace. I wish I had told you about the twins earlier. But I was afraid. Not of you, but of opening a door that might hurt them later. If they ever find you, or you find them, please, love them. They're good boys. They deserve better than the world gave me. And if God ever lets you cross paths with someone kind enough to care for them, be kind too. Don't push them away. They are all that's left of me." Tears fell from his eyes. The boys leaned in. Alicia's hand rested on his shoulder. He looked up, voice cracking. She didn't hate me." "No," Alicia whispered. "She forgave you long ago." Raymond wiped his face. "Then I can go in peace." Daniel shook his head. "Don't say that." Raymond looked at them both. "Then let me leave something behind. A gift." He called Alicia to sit closer. "There's a small land in my village," he said. "I never sold it. Never touched it. It's in Grace's name, and now in theirs. Use it for them. Build something. Anything." Alicia nodded slowly. "We'll use it to start something that keeps her memory alive." Raymond turned to the boys. "Promise me something." They nodded. "Never let anger stay in your heart too long. It makes people lose things they can never get back. And never forget the ones who stayed with you when no one else did." That night, he slept quietly. The next morning, he didn't wake up. There was no struggle. No noise. Just silence. Alicia sat by the bed, holding his hand. The boys sat beside her, heads bowed. And yet, the room wasn't filled with sorrow alone. There was peace too. Because he had come back. He had made things right. He had given them something not even time could erase. A family. The funeral was simple. In his village. Alicia arranged everything. The twins stood proudly beside his grave, holding each other. They wore matching white shirts, the same kind he used to say made them look like gentlemen. People from the village came and listened as Alicia spoke. He wasn't perfect, but he found his way back to love. And that takes courage. Daniel stepped forward, holding a picture of Grace and Mr. Raymond together. "My grandfather taught me something before he left. He said, pain doesn't last, but love does. That's what I'll always remember." David added, "And I forgive him. Because Grace did." Later, as the sun set behind the hills, Alicia looked at the boys. "We'll build something on that land," she said. "A shelter. For boys like you. For children like Grace once was." They smiled. It wasn't just an idea. It was a promise. A new chapter. Born from pain. Built with love. The land was silent. It stood at the edge of Edu village, wide and green, surrounded by mango trees and soft brown soil. The sun poured over it gently, like it knew something beautiful was about to rise from the ground. Alicia stood there with Daniel and David beside her. Behind them were two builders marking the ground, ropes stretched, pegs knocked in, plans unfolding. She had returned to the city the same evening of Mr. Raymond's burial and made arrangements with her architect. She didn't wait. She couldn't. The promise they made to him, and to Grace, was alive in her heart, and she intended to keep it. "This is the spot," Alicia said quietly. This is where it will begin. The boys looked around the open land. Daniel knelt and pressed his palm into the soil. It's soft, he said. David nodded. It feels peaceful. Alicia smiled. We're going to build a shelter. A home. A place where no child will have to sleep under a broken shed or beg for food. Daniel looked up. Can we name it after her? Alicia didn't even think twice. Yes. We'll call it Grace Home. That night, back in the city, they drew the first design on the dining table using pencils and paper. Alicia brought out the blueprint later, but she wanted the boys to feel involved from the start. She asked them, if you could build the perfect home for children like you once were, what would you put in it? David answered first. A big kitchen. With food. Always. Daniel added, and a library. With books and toys and space to draw. And a big bed for everyone, David continued. No more mats or cold floors. And games, Daniel said. Outside space. Football field. They laughed as they kept talking, the energy growing with each idea. Alicia wrote everything down. It wasn't just a shelter now, it was going to be a place of healing. In the weeks that followed, construction began. Trucks came in with sand and gravel. Bricklayers started the foundation. Cement mixed, iron rods rose, blocks were laid one by one. Alicia visited the site every weekend with the boys. Sometimes they helped pass water to the workers. Other times they simply watched, wide-eyed, amazed that something so big could grow from land that was once forgotten. But something else was growing too. Their story. Word began to spread. People started talking about the woman who took in orphan boys and was now building a home in memory of their mother. Journalists came. Local news stations interviewed Alicia and the boys. Donations began to come from people who were touched by the story. One day, a woman walked up to Alicia after a news interview. Her eyes were red. Her voice was low. "Ma," she said, "my daughter ran away 3 months ago. She's just 14. I think she's in the city now. Please, if you ever see her." She broke down before finishing. Alicia hugged her tightly. That was when Alicia decided Grace Home wouldn't just be a place for boys. It would be for any child with no one to turn to, girls, boys, toddlers, teens. Lost, abused, abandoned, or just hungry. Grace Home would be a second chance. 3 months passed. Then 5. Then 7. The building was nearly complete. Painted white and gold. A playground at the back. 6 large rooms inside with bunk beds. A reading room, a clinic room, a kitchen that smelled of fresh bread on the day they tested the oven. On the 8th month, they held the opening ceremony. Alicia wore a long flowing Ankara dress with red and gold patterns. Daniel and David stood beside her, dressed in matching native wear. The compound was filled with guests. Music played. A banner was hung across the entrance. Grace Home, built from love for love. The village elder, Chief Musa, was the special guest. He was a calm man with gray hair and deep eyes. When he was called to speak, he looked at the building, then at Alicia. "My people," he began, "this building is not just blocks and paint. It is a message. A message that pain does not have the final say. That one person's love can change many lives." He turned to Alicia. "You are not from our village, yet you have made it better than some who were born here. May the God who gave you this vision bless you forever." The crowd clapped. The twins held Alicia's hands tightly. Then it was time to cut the ribbon. Alicia looked at the scissors in her hand. Her heart pounded. She took a deep breath and whispered under her breath, "This is for you, Grace. For every tear you cried. For every night you slept hungry. For every prayer you whispered over these boys. You didn't die in vain." She cut the ribbon. And Grace Home came alive. That evening, the first set of children arrived. 3 boys from the streets of Abuja. 2 girls rescued from a collapsed orphanage. A baby found near a dumpster. Alicia welcomed each of them with a warm meal, a soft bed, and a hug. She didn't ask too many questions. She just gave them space to breathe again. Daniel and David became helpers. They taught the new children how to fold their clothes, how to sweep, how to take turns. They knew what it felt like to be afraid, so they were patient. That night, As Alicia walked down the hallway, she paused by the rooms. In one room, a girl was reading a storybook aloud to her younger brother. In another, two boys were whispering and giggling under the covers. In the last room, David and Daniel were already asleep, sharing one blanket, smiling in their dreams. Alicia sat on the bench outside the front door, looking up at the stars. She thought of Grace. She thought of Mr. Raymond. She thought of the day those twins had asked for leftovers. And how everything changed. Sometimes, it takes hunger to lead us to healing. Sometimes, a please ma is the start of a miracle. And sometimes, the family you build with love is stronger than the one you lose in pain. It had been 6 months since the opening of Grace's home. Every morning now began with laughter. Children woke up to the smell of hot akara and pap, lined up to brush their teeth, and raced each other to the common room for morning prayers. Alicia had hired 2 trained caretakers and a cook, but still, she handled the most important part herself: hugs. Big ones. Warm ones. The kind that said, "You're safe now." Daniel and David had become like little kings of the house. Not because they were special, but because they had been the first. They knew what it was like to sleep on nylon sheets behind buildings. They knew the hunger that twisted your stomach until sleep was the only escape. And now, every child that came through the gate found a brother in them. They were happy. Until the day the man with no name arrived. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The sun was hot, and the children were playing football in the yard. Alicia was inside, going through some donation records when she heard the gate creak open. Mama Nene, the elderly gatekeeper, poked her head into the sitting room. "Madam," she said, her voice uncertain, "a man is here. Says he's looking for you." Alicia looked up from her papers. "What's his name?" He didn't say. He just said, "It's important." Alicia stood and wiped her hands. "Let him in. I'll see him on the porch." When she stepped outside, she saw a man standing beside the gate. He wore a brown shirt tucked into faded trousers, a plastic bag in one hand. He was tall, slim, with a rough beard and tired eyes. She frowned. Something about him seemed familiar, but she couldn't place it. "Yes?" she asked. He didn't answer at first. He just stared at her with red, glassy eyes. "My name is, doesn't matter," he finally said. I heard 2 boys are staying here. Twin boys." Alicia's heart skipped. She stepped closer. "Who are you? What do you want with them?" I think they're mine." Her mouth dropped open. "Excuse me." "I'm their father," he said slowly. "Daniel and David. Grace's sons." Alicia's knees almost gave way. "Grace's husband?" He looked down. "No. I was never her husband. I was just the man who got her pregnant. Then ran away." Alicia clenched her fists. "Do you know how many nights those boys cried themselves to sleep on the streets?" she snapped. "Do you know what it took to get them to smile again?" He nodded. "I know I don't deserve to see them. But please. I just want to know if they're all right." Alicia was silent. She had seen many kinds of pain, but this one was different. This wasn't a hungry child. This was a man eaten by his own regret. She finally spoke. "Wait here." She went inside and found the twins in their room, organizing comic books. "Boys," she said gently, "someone is here. Someone who says he knows you." Daniel looked up, curious. "Who?" She hesitated. "He says, he's your father." They both froze. David stood slowly. "Our father." Alicia nodded. For a moment, no one moved. Then Daniel whispered, "We thought he was dead." David added, "Mama never said much about him." Alicia sat beside them. "You don't have to see him if you're not ready." But Daniel stood up. "I want to see his face." David followed. "Me too." Alicia led them outside. The man was sitting on the edge of the bench, eyes fixed on the ground. When he heard their footsteps, he stood. And when the boys stepped forward, he dropped his bag and covered his mouth. He couldn't speak. Daniel tilted his head. "Are you really him?" He nodded, tears running down his face. "I left your mother," he said. "I left you both. I was scared. I had nothing. I was stupid. Then I heard. I heard about 2 twins begging in the city. And I knew. I just knew it had to be you. David stepped forward. You left her to die poor and alone. He nodded again. And I live with that pain every day. Daniel asked, why now? I didn't come to take anything, he said, wiping his tears. I just wanted to see you. To say sorry. To tell you that you matter. That you always did. The boys looked at him. Their faces were hard to read. But then Daniel walked up slowly and hugged him. David hesitated, then joined. Alicia blinked fast to hold back her tears. The man sobbed. I don't deserve this. Daniel said, no you don't. But Mama would have wanted us to forgive you. David added, that's how she was. Always soft, even when she was hurting. Alicia cleared her throat. You can come see them from time to time. But if you ever walk away again, you'll never come back. He nodded quickly. I won't disappear. I promise. He visited them every weekend after that. He helped clean the playground, carried groceries, painted one of the new dormitory walls. He never asked for a room or food. He only asked to be useful. And slowly, the boys began to warm up to him. They asked questions. Why did you leave? Did you love Mama? Were you scared? He answered each one, no matter how painful. He told them the truth. And because he told the truth, they believed him. One Sunday evening, as they all sat under the mango tree after dinner, Daniel leaned against his father's arm and said, maybe God didn't want us to find you before, because he wanted us to find Alicia first. David nodded. Yeah. If you had come earlier, we might never have known what real love feels like. Their father smiled through tears. And Alicia watched from the porch. She whispered, Grace, your boys are okay. They found peace, and now even the pieces that were broken are being mended. Because when love leads, even the worst endings can be rewritten. A full year had passed since the day Daniel and David asked for leftovers at that upscale restaurant in the heart of the city. It felt like a lifetime ago. Now, Grace home was no longer just a shelter. It had become a place of healing, of laughter, and of hope. Children came from all corners of the city, some rescued from the streets, others from abusive homes, and many just abandoned by those meant to love them. But here, they found something deeper than food or shelter. They found family. Daniel and David had grown taller, stronger, more confident. They no longer looked like the thin, broken boys who once clutched each other under a leaking shed. Now they walked with purpose. They helped with chores, led prayer sessions, and even tutored some of the younger kids in reading and writing. They had found their place, not just in Grace's home, but in life. Alicia stood at the heart of it all. Her heart was bigger than ever, stretched wide enough to love every child that came through the gate. She had become a mother to many. And though she had given a lot, she had received even more. Love, joy, purpose. The twins' father, whom they now called Papa Moses, continued to visit every weekend. He never tried to take them away. He understood that fatherhood wasn't about blood alone. It was about being present, being accountable, being kind. And so, he served with quiet devotion, washing dishes, fixing broken taps, building trust, one small action at a time. One Saturday afternoon, the children were gathered under the mango tree behind the home. It was storytelling hour, something Daniel and David had started to honor their mother's memory. Today, Alicia joined them with something special in her hands. A large framed photo. She lifted it for everyone to see. This, she said with a proud smile, is Grace. The children leaned in to see. A beautiful woman, full of light, stood in the photo holding 2 tiny babies in her arms. She was strong, Alicia continued. She was poor but full of courage. She gave everything for her boys. And today, we all live in the home that carries her name. The children clapped. David stood and took the frame from Alicia, holding it close. She never gave up on us. Even when she was alone. Even when she was hungry. And we'll never let her name be forgotten. That night, Alicia organized a celebration in the compound. Not because it was a public holiday, but because they had all survived something. Pain, rejection, loneliness. And now, they were together. There were balloons, fried rice, jollof, chicken, music. The kids danced under the stars, laughing freely. Mama Nene even joined in, shaking her waist like she was 20 again. Then came the moment that brought everyone to silence. Daniel and David stepped forward with a microphone. Behind them was a newly unveiled marble stone at the entrance of the compound. Daniel began. 1 year ago, we were hungry. We were scared. We were alone. David continued, we didn't ask for much. Just leftovers. Daniel said, but instead of food, God gave us a future. David said, instead of rejection, He gave us a family. They spoke together, from leftovers to legacy. The crowd clapped. Some wept. Then Alicia came forward and placed her hand on their shoulders. I don't know why God chose that day for us to meet, she said, but I'm forever grateful He did. You boys changed my life as much as I changed yours. The twins hugged her tightly. And under that starlit sky, surrounded by love, they knew one thing for sure. They were no longer orphans. They were no longer forgotten. They were no longer hungry. They were living proof that when love finds you, even in your weakest, dirtiest, most desperate moment, it doesn't just feed you. It rewrites your story. Moral lessons. 1. Kindness changes everything. Alicia could have walked away that day at the restaurant. But instead, her simple act of compassion transformed 2 lives, and countless others. 2. Everyone deserves a second chance. Whether it was Mr. Raymond or Papa Moses, their return, though late, was still meaningful. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it creates space for healing. 3. Pain can be the beginning of purpose. Grace's suffering wasn't in vain. Her memory gave birth to a home that will bless generations to come. 4. Never ignore the voice that asks for help. A whisper for leftovers might be a cry for salvation. And your response could be the answer to someone's prayer.